Welcome back to the Move podcast. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a look at the last few stages, 10, 11, and 12, and of the Vuelta España. And we're going to look ahead as we get into the bigger mountains starting tomorrow. Johan, I'm sure will break that down for us. But I'm JB, and I'm joined by Spencer and, of course, Johan, who will have their insight into these last few stages and what to look at coming up. So let's jump right into it with you, Spencer, just giving kind of a quick overview, and then we'll do our deep dive.
Yeah, so since we last recorded right after Sepp Kuss took the lead, I believe, maybe stage 6, stage 7 about. So since then, we've had stage 8, which Primož Roglič won. Extremely hard final climb. Remco Evenepoel drilled it. Really an impressive pace. It was like a 13-minute long steep climb. Maybe some mistakes, made some mistakes where he sat on the front and let everyone pick him off. I think that was the day of, you guys talked about that in your rest day one. George had some thoughts on that. And then the other big GC set pieces were, well, stage 9 was supposed to be one, but they moved the finish. No time gets, even though there was some spatial distance between riders, that there was some interesting timekeeping there. And then the big headline is the stage 10 time trial, which Filippo Ganna absolutely roasted. I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts on if you think he's still the preeminent, like, gold standard time trialist, or if that was an upset of Remco Evenepoel. And then Sepp Kuss put in an incredible ride to, I think most riders and most experts probably thought he was going to lose around 2 minutes. He limited his losses. I think it was 1:20 to Remco Evenepoel, kept the jersey by 1:09. Primož Roglič, really good ride. Remco Evenepoel, you could say a good ride to be the runner-up, but I don't think he took enough time. I think he needed more time on both Roglič and Kuss there. We can debate that. And then yesterday's stage, Jesus Herrada smokes everyone on the stage 11 uphill finish. Ineos let it out with Filippo Ganna, I guess, for Geraint Thomas for the sprint. Thomas finished 19 seconds back, though, was never really competitive in that finale. We can talk about it. Herrada was, unbelievable. Third Vuelta win, 4 World Tour wins in his career. 75% of them are at this race. Clearly, he connects with the race. And then today's stage 12 sprint finish, kind of the classic A to B sprint stage that gets us to the base of the mountains. And then we have stage 13, 14 high Pyrenean stages over the weekend, or I guess Friday, Saturday, and then some tough mountain stages next week after the rest day on Monday.
All right, let's back up here because I know Johan will have some thoughts. We'll start with you on what we saw in the time trial. Let's start with Filippo Ganna, just crushing everybody. How many minute men did he catch?
he caught four guys, so I assume that was all his minute men. No, he was flying, and going off the result of the World Championships time trial, where Evenepoel beat him, 20 seconds, 25 seconds probably. But for this time trial, I think that Ganna, we actually thought that Evenepoel was the favorite, but Ganna was able to prepare himself quite a bit better, specifically for this stage, given that, the 2-3 stages before, he could basically he didn't have to fight for GC. I think the result was 1 and 2 was logical. We all say, everybody said, well, Evenepoel's the favorite, fresh new world champion, has something to defend, but at the end of the day, all these efforts catch up with you. Nobody is Superman, and I think the performance of Ganna. Look, if you have a 25 kilometer time trial and you go 56 kilometers per hour average, and it was not completely flat because there was a little hill in there, that's just crazy. On the other hand, if you look at Filippo Ganna, he did break the world hour record this year. I don't remember exactly how much, but I think it was close to 57 kilometers per hour, or even 57. I don't remember. So that means that during 1 hour, the guy basically was close to 60K an hour, right? Because it was a standing start on the world hour record. So he has that kind of speed in his legs. And, we saw the 2 best time trialists in the world. And the third guy was Primož Roglič, and he's the Olympic champion. So I think logic was respected in the time trial. for sure, Evenepoel was disappointed. I mean, you could see. I mean, you could clearly see the Evenepoel who passes the finish line, and as soon as he sees he doesn't win, he's pissed off. Right? He's pissed off. He's angry. Typical reaction of Evenepoel, and I also think typical reaction of a big champion. When they're not winning, they're not happy. But I think he should be happy because at least he did distance one of the three Jumbo-Visma guys, Jonas Vingegaard, which, in theory, you could think, well, maybe that's the guy that I have to fear the most in the long mountains. But on the other hand, I think Roglic did really well. He lost 20 seconds maybe to Remco, if I remember correctly. And Sepp Kuss, Sepp Kuss did an amazing time trial. I think that's the real concern for Remco and others, and others. Even a concern for a guy like Primoz, because they can say, we're good teammates, we want to, but at the end of the day, these guys want to win, right? They're champions and they're here to win. And so, but for sure, Sepp Kuss, he did an amazing time trial. It looks like he's able to deal with the pressure. Also, basically because they don't expect of Sepp Kuss that he's going to win the Vuelta. His team doesn't put that pressure on him, but he's in amazing shape. And he just, we said it in other episodes, I was really surprised to see that they selected Sepp Kuss for the Vuelta. That was already like, wow, then Sepp Kuss shows up and he's in really good shape. And now all of a sudden he finds himself in the lead. And to me, every day is a day closer to Madrid. And 1 minute 9 seconds. Where are they going to take that time? It'll need a weak stage or a weak moment from Sepp Kuss and a super strong Remco Evenepoel or Juan Ayuso or Enric Mas.
I don't mean to jump around, but a funny moment to me on yesterday's stage 11, was another Jumbo rider going to get bottles for Sepp Kuss. Like, what a job change for him. He has to change his whole mindset overnight, practically. That had to be very weird for him.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but I think that's their strength also. I mean, you can see not just here in the Vuelta, for example, but for those who have been following the Tour of Great Britain, we have Wout van Aert there and Olaf Kooi who are riding there, and Wout van Aert, the first 4 stages did the lead out for Olaf Kooi, and Olaf Kooi won all 4 stages, and then today finally Van Aert won, so they got 5. So it's a team that operates that way, and Sepp Kuss is now on the receiving end. He's good for him. He deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, and he definitely deserves it. We can talk about want to talk about Sepp Kuss a little bit later, but I did want to say Juan Sebastian Milano won today's sprint stage. I omitted that. I don't want to be guilty of Milano erasure. It was a great win. Interesting to see him he was a lead out man, stage 21 last year at this race for UAE, beat a sprinter. So this is if you're a lead out man, a young up and coming lead out man, and you want to get in the sprint game, just start beating your own sprinter and these lead outs and you'll be the sprinter. Clearly incredibly talented rider. But on Johan's point about the time trial, these speeds are ridiculous. Like Filippo Ganna, 56K an hour. That's 35 miles an hour, I believe. And that's with turns. It was a tight course through the city for the first half. So imagine that you're averaging 35 miles an hour for half an hour, carving through a city. Those are prologue speeds, and they're doing also it for a full-time trial
with already 10 stages in the legs.
Yeah,
that's even more impressive.
And I went through the and also if you want to go that fast, there's two ways to do it. Either be really big and strong and put out a lot of watts. Ghana was about 500 watts average for that 30 minutes, or be incredibly aero, and that's what Remco Evenepoel is. And Primo's kind of stuck in the middle. He's actually not, despite being the Olympic time trial champion, not a great high speed time trialist. And by high speed, I mean like over 52K an hour. Most of the time trials he wins are harder time trials, like 41K an hour, 48K an hour. This was the best I actually have found that he performed in a time trial averaging around 55K an hour. So that's a really good sign for Primoz. You might look at the results and say, oh, we lost 20 seconds to Remco. He didn't win and he's the Olympic time trial champion. this was a win. Like, make no mistake about it. This was a great day for Primož Roglič.
I agree. I mean, if you look last year's Vuelta, Evenepoel won the time trial and Primož lost close to 50 seconds. And it was still considered okay. So, I mean, this year he's a lot closer. And actually today he even got more closer because he got 4 seconds bonification, which was a surprise, but we can talk about that later.
I have a question that you guys may or may not know the answer to. As I was watching the time trial, this is kind of out of left field, but it seemed that the helmets designs seem to be all over the place. Whereas 20 years ago, everybody's looked the same. What is going on with that? Is that the helmet manufacturers working on their design and the team has to wear that? Like, it seems like all the testing would have landed on one particular design. Like, what's going on with that? Or is it just
that's a good question.
What do you think, Spencer? I'll tell you my opinion later.
I think so. JB's pulling at strings here. I think we're not supposed to pull at. Like, if all this research went into helmets, and they've been saying this for years, decades, like this is like Greg LeMond has the fastest helmet, and that's why he went so fast in 1988. Well, then why are these helmets radically different all the time? I think it's just marketing BS. I don't think anyone knows anything, and they're just changing them around to look different. So you're like, well, that looks interesting. I'll buy that one. That's maybe my overly cynical take.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you one thing. We've done a lot of different wind tunnel tests in the past for different brands, helmets, clothing, bikes, wheels. And I have never, ever gotten out of a wind tunnel with the report that we didn't have the fast equipment. We always had the fastest equipment after that testing. So there is for sure, a marketing aspect to it, a big marketing aspect. There's not that much difference in between, the skin suits, and there are little things, the skin suits, bikes. Now, in terms of the helmets, the way they're having evolving, what I see is that, different manufacturers, but they tend to get bigger. Before I know I've known the times where the time trial helmets had to be just fitting your head as narrow as possible, and
they weren't even protective at a certain point. Right.
Initially it was just a shell, just a shell. I mean, also because at that time you were allowed to ride without helmets. Remember Fignon in the Tour against Le Monde with the ponytail and Le Monde with the idea. Big helmet. But what I see is that, and there's certain extremes which look a bit funny, but I see that they get bigger. And this is just my idea, without having any scientific, I didn't do any research on it, but the fact that I see it bigger, it looks to me like they want to have this round frontal instead of a sharp with then certain forms behind it. If you do a narrow helmet, and then all of a sudden you have your shoulders. Now what you see is that this goes like towards your shoulders. So it's like a round bullet instead of a sharp bullet. I think from my limited knowledge, I think that's the thinking behind it. I would have to do some research, but something tells me that I'm not far off. I mean, anybody who's listening and has more information about it, feel free to comment in the comment section about this. But I have to say, it starts to look weird sometimes. There's this one team, what is it, X? Those helmets look really weird. But at the same time, if we think about there was this other helmet. I don't know if it's a POC or the one that goes like this, and then
POC was the first one to do the Spaceballs helmet, is what I remember.
The first time we saw it, I said, "What is this? This looks so strange. It looked actually ridiculous." I thought it was like I was looking at a cartoon movie or something, But it actually makes sense that you see this round shapes to make it like a round or oval bullet instead of too many different sides at the front of the bullet.
I just find the whole thing interesting because it's like, how many time trial helmets do you sell to the general public?
Not
very many.
And think about the time trial bikes. Who is buying those? Because triathlon has their own separate bikes.
Yeah, but it's part of it. I mean, even if you don't sell a lot of time trial bikes, or
it's a commercial.
Normally, if a certain brand has a lot of success with a certain supersonic model of time trial helmet, they're going to sell a lot of normal helmets because of that.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. Interesting. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. I just was watching this going, what is going on with all these? Yeah. I didn't know how much was a decision or if it was up to your helmet manufacturer. Anyhow, we'll probably I'll keep an eye on the comments section and see what our listeners know about that. Mm-hmm. Okay. How's that? All right, let's move on. That's it from the time trial, I believe. Let's go on to stage 11.
There's one more thing I wanted to say about the time trial. So, you have the leaders who go full out. Normally, I mean, at this point in the race, 10 days or 11 days into the Vuelta, you have the guys who think they can win, obviously Ganna. Then you had another guy like, for example, Stefan Bissiger, time trial specialist, European champion. One thing that I didn't understand is the sixth place it's not my intention to criticize the rider or Matteo Cattaneo, sixth place in the time trial. And I said before, and I think I had this conversation with Spencer. I said, man, I hope that Soudal QuickStep doesn't allow Cattaneo to go full gas in the time trial. Was that with you, Spencer, that we talked about that?
Yeah, because we were going to pick him for the podium on outcomes, and then we didn't because you said if they're thinking straight, they won't have them ride hard.
Yeah. And so then I see, Cattaneo finished sixth, which means he went full gas because, all the guys in front were really good time trialists and in great shape, and they went full gas. So if you think logically, you have Remco Evenepoel, who is the sole leader of Soudal QuickStep. They are definitely not as strong as Jumbo-Visma, probably not as strong as UAE as a team. And then on top of that, Matteo Cattaneo has been all the time the last guy with Remco Evenepoel, the guy who set the tempo, the guy who was there. And when I see those things, I really don't understand that. First of all, I don't understand why the rider would want to do that. It's a sixth place, but Cattaneo has won time trials in World Tour races already. I think he won the time trial in Tour of Poland recently. He's a good time trialist, but what's the sixth place going to do for him? And then instead of saving himself, because it's 30 minutes or whatever, but it's 30 minutes full gas, and at some point there's going to be this 1-2 minutes that he needs to be there for his leader. That could probably be because he went too deep in the time trial. That's just me thinking out loud. Maybe things have changed. There's quite a bit in between. There's a flat stage in between. You can say they recover, but you don't really recover 100% ever in a Grand Tour. It's not like you have 2 days of easy riding and you're back to 100% energy. So I was a bit surprised to see that, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one.
Maybe you could elaborate on this for everyone listening, because I would imagine not very many of our listeners have done a time trial as part of a stage race, right? That's a very, very select group. But maybe if you could describe what that physically takes out. I think even though it's 30 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes it takes a lot more out of you than people realize, as opposed to racing for 6 hours.
Yeah, go out and ride 500 watts for 30 minutes this afternoon and tell me how you feel. I mean, you could say it's one of the most violent efforts you could do on a bike would be a 30-minute time trial.
And also, JB, like after, especially in a stage race, like after a time trial, for sure, Cattaneo went full gas on a time trial bike, completely different position. Nowadays, these positions are super aggressive. There's a big difference between going at 80%, which for Cattaneo would be perfectly fine. You would be perfectly in the middle somewhere. 80%, you get off your bike, you're kind of okay. If you go 100% on the bike in that extreme position, everything hurts. I mean, everything hurts. It's different muscles, and you pay the price. The day after, you don't feel great. And if the day after you don't feel great, then you start to carry that tiredness with you through the next stages.
Yeah, and talk about not going full gas. I didn't think we'd spend this much time on the time trial. But, Sepp Kuss surprised a lot of people. But if you think about his role as a super domestique and Grand Tours for the mountains, he's probably never gone full gas in a Grand Tour time trial. So we didn't know. Plus there's the power of being in red, right?
Yeah. Well, I think he never went full gas like this in a flat time trial. I think he also said it's like the first time that I didn't get caught by the guy behind me in the time trial. Shows you that normally a time trial like this is, it's like a 75%, 70% effort. He did go full gas, for example, in the last time trial in the Giro, but that was a mountain time trial, and it was the second last day. But man, I mean, he defended himself really, really well. And you could also actually see Sepp Kuss, if you look at Jonas Vingegaard, at Primoz Roglic, and then, the super specialists, Evenepoel and Ganna, and then you look at the position and the setup of the time trial bike of Sepp Kuss, you can see this guy did not spend a lot of time and energy on time trialing. I said to you, Spencer, I said that cockpit looks completely different. It's like it's super short. Of course, there's always physical limitations, but it's Sepp Kuss's time trial bike is not dialed in to be super competitive. It's more kind of dialed into, okay, let me just get through this in the Grand Tours and let me just get comfortable on this bike. Right?
Yeah. And you wonder, how many times has he ever really done a competitive time trial? I'm going back. Sepp Kuss, by the way, we are off topic, by the way, but Sepp Kuss, really interesting, did not come up in some sort of codified racing program. The guy who was racing for the University of Colorado team, like doing criteriums with me in Colorado, and was probably doing TTs on his road bike. And then he kind of got on it was like a development team out of St. Louis, not a big team. And then the year later, he was on Rally doing some pro races, but I doubt he was ever really trying in time trials there. So this might be one of the first time trials that he ever really focused on. As Johan said, I think he has, you described it, Johan, as it looked like he has a basket on the front to go to the store. That's what his cockpit looks like. Because
Spencer, don't reveal all of our I did in fact say that. I did say that.
I bet it's set up for comfort just to get him through these time trial stages.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right. I know we did spend a lot on the time trial, but this is interesting stuff. Let's move on to 11, that 26-man breakaway. Let's start with you, Spencer. What were your observations watching Filippo Ganna, who crushed it in the time trial the day before, setting up what looks like for Geraint Thomas, but looks like he could have ridden away if it was something the team wanted for him on his own. Was that my observation correct? They were trying to set up Thomas, but it just wasn't quite there.
And it was kind of beautiful. In theory, it's beautiful, right? You get two strong guys in the break. You drive the break. These are like amateur racing tactics, JB. This is like what we would do in races we're doing, where it's like, oh, I got Stefan Roth up here. He's going to drive the break for me. I'm going to win the sprint. Easy, right? But the problem is, it didn't really seem like they considered everybody else in the break, like a lot of really talented, quick riders. Jesus Herrada, who won the stage, Roman Gregar, who got second, Andreas Krohn, Jonathan Casado. These are all really fast guys at the end of climbs. And this isn't the Tourmalet. This is a shorter climb that a lot of guys can survive on. Ganna was setting an incredibly hard pace on the climb, pulling in anyone who attacked, keeping anyone from attacking. And I couldn't help but thinking, what if Ganna was just off the front? Like, who is reeling this guy in? And then Thomas could sit in the group. And if someone does try to reel him in, Thomas is sitting on him, it's like a reverse lead out, getting a free ride and also waiting to attack if they do make the junction, because you'd think they wouldn't want to go to a bunch sprint with Geraint Thomas, who hasn't won an uphill stage since 2018. So it's quite a long time ago. I probably wouldn't have banked on that. That's what it was, just a little confusing to me. It looks very cool. Filippo Ganna is very fast. I just don't know if it was maximizing their chances of success. And it kind of goes back to, I think, Johan with his kind of frustration with QuickStep in the time trial. We might be expecting there to be more like strong-armed leaders in these teams. Like, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to win the race. It might just be a lot of like on the road rider decisions. Like, riders might be making a lot of these decisions by themselves. And that's what it told me. Like, Ganna just respects Thomas and wanted to set him up.
I think that's the word, Spencer, respect. I think that's probably what played the biggest role in how Ineos rode that stage. You're right to say that, if Ganna gets off the front in the lower slopes, which he was perfectly capable of doing the way he was going, who goes and gets him? I think the fear probably was that there would be nobody who would be setting the pace, but actually attacking, which would go against the best way for Geraint Thomas, of course, because he wants a steady pace. But I personally think, and I actually think I've heard Geraint Thomas say in his post-race interview that Ganna absolutely wanted to do this job for Geraint Thomas. Out of respect, in my opinion, Geraint Thomas is a really highly respected rider within Ineos, and I think rightfully so. He won the Tour, he was second in the Tour, he was third in the Tour, he was second in the Giro, and he's with the team since the very beginning. So he's like probably the most respected rider on Ineos, in my opinion. You could also see, for example, at the beginning of this Vuelta, Egan Bernal was like his, it was like his super domestique, and he was really proud that he could do that job for Geraint Thomas. So, they probably made a mistake with that tactic. But I still think, then if after the stage, if you see the outcome and the way Jesus Herrada won that stage and how he was really calculating it, I don't think it would have mattered. I think Herrada had that acceleration with 400 meters to go, and he would have won this in any scenario.
Go ahead, Spencer, go ahead.
Even with the stop-start, like, let's just say Ganna's off the front and they're attacking behind, so it's stop-start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they catch him. I mean, if someone really got on the front and set a steady pace and they were all rotated,
it would have happened, Spencer, because the Groupama FDG had two riders. So Rudy Mollard would have set the pace, thinking that Romain Grégoire could win. And they were right, because Romain Grégoire, the young guy, he's, big champion. He was second in the stage. So I think that would have been the case. Then Groupama would have pulled,
Yeah. I'll buy it. But it also, the thing about it gets Thomas, he's 7.5 minutes back. He made up a lot of time, like over 5 minutes. I wonder if they think if he could get another breakaway and make another jump.
I personally think at this point, when you start a Grand Tour on that kind of foot, like Geraint Thomas, with the two crashes being a little bit off, the first time uphill there in Andorra, this is not going to be Geraint Thomas's Vuelta. It's not meant to be. And I don't think he will improve that much, that he's able to be up there and get, anything but a podium for Geraint Thomas is not worth it. So I think he's going to keep trying for stage wins. And then, if there's a bonus time gain, he'll take it. But I think his priority is going to be on trying to win a stage rather than trying to be in the top 5 or top 6, 7. Top 3, I think, is at this point, it's not realistic to think that Geraint Thomas can be on the podium.
So what you're explaining is he'll back off. He'll quit worrying about that overall time, and he's probably looking ahead at the remaining stages and trying to cherry pick one. Or
normally, JB, if logic is respected, unless Geraint Thomas tomorrow gets in a breakaway, which could be, but if it's real racing on the Tourmalet, he won't be there with those 6, 7, 8 best guys. He hasn't been there in any other. It's always the 3 Jumbos, the 3 UAE, Evenepoel, Enric Mas, and whoever. I mean, I don't know who else. Maybe Lenny Martinez. Geraint Thomas hasn't been nowhere near. Because of circumstances. Let's forget he had a bad crash and hurt both of his knees. And you may be anybody. I mean, once you start to be all banded up it's not nice. It's everything hurts. And no, I think Geraint Thomas should forget about the GC. At the end, what is it going to do for him? 6th or 7th in the Vuelta? It makes no difference, right?
Right. Now let's talk about the GC battle that did not happen on stage 11. And I didn't catch the day prior your outcome show to hear your predictions. Did you think that with it ending on a Cat 1 climb, did you think there would be a GC battle for at least the last 1K or something? But we didn't see anything.
We didn't expect big differences, but let's not forget we had this finish in 2019 or 2020 in the Vuelta. I think Dan Martin won ahead of Primož Roglic, and there was like 8-10 riders really close, so we could kind of expect what it was going to be. But I did definitely expect that a guy like Evenepoel would try Sepp Kuss, especially the day after a time trial. I mean, that's if you think logically, my way of thinking would be, okay, Sepp Kuss is in this position. He's in the red jersey. He's not used to go full gas in these kind of flat time trials. He's definitely not used the same way as the time trial specialist to the time trial bike. So he may feel uncomfortable the day after. So why not give it a try? And try to accelerate with 2K to go and maybe an attack. It didn't happen. It wouldn't have mattered also because it seems like Sepp Kuss had recovered extremely well from the time trial and was glued to the wheel of Remco Evenepoel in his last acceleration. But what I really didn't understand was this all of a sudden, like this consensus between all the big guys, that it was like, at first I thought something had happened and that there was kind of an agreement. Okay, let's not race. Let's there's something going on, right? Whatever it is. But turns out that there was nothing going on. And it was just, was everybody afraid or what they were doing exactly? I don't know, but it looked to me really strange that there was this passiveness amongst all the big favorites.
I mean, I can get why Jumbo. I think it was a trap. It's a trap because Jumbo
was fine. Jumbo was perfect.
Yeah, because where does Sepp Kuss struggle in theory? And maybe we can throw the Sepp Kuss book out the window because everything he's ever done in his career is in service of others. So maybe this isn't relevant, but he tends to struggle on really short, explosive climbs just because he's lighter and he's not putting out the raw power of someone like Primož or even Remco. And so you'd think, well, how do you take back? Like, let's just start work on this like it's a riddle. You're a weaker climber. You're in a very mountainous race. You have to make up 1 minute and 9 seconds. How do you do it? You would think you would do it on climbs that suit you, like yesterday. Just get, small gaps. Let's say Remco finishes. There's a few riders with him. There's a couple jumbled groups. You can get big time gaps there because the way they calculate time is not linear. It's if you're, in the back of a group and there's a split, you might be close to someone, but you might be 10 seconds behind because they take the time by the first rider to cross the finish line and then you. And if there happens to be a split there, it could be a 10-second gap. And you think, well, 10 seconds now we're down to 59 seconds. That starts to look a lot more reasonable. That's why, and even just how do you beat people? You pressure them, turn the screws. They eventually blow up. See Tour de France 2023, Tadej Pogačar. I was a little surprised to see QuickStep just throw that away. And I'm sure Jumbo was happy to say, all right, let's slow pedal up this thing. Let's slow pedal all the way to Madrid.
Jumbo was really happy. I think the ones Remco, you could still say, okay, he's up there. He's in third, right? He's in third now. Yeah. But the guys who, and then also you had UAE, they were probably also kind of happy because Juan Ayuso had a crash at the beginning of the stage.
Yep.
Probably didn't feel great. So I say, okay, you know what? Hey, at least we saved the day, So it was just a combination of circumstances for everybody. And it looked really weird. It was like there was a strike or something. Which and it wasn't. So I had never seen this before.
As a spectator, That's really boring after you just spent 2 hours in front of your television waiting for this last couple K of this climb. I was disappointed, but anyhow, good for Sepp Kuss.
It's good for Sepp Kuss though.
Yeah, let's not forget, they all know how hard this Vuelta still is. There's so many hills still to come, big mountain stages, but also climbs that, are not very well known, but are super, super hard. So, listen, they can't race on every single climb, right?
Right.
But then you would expect, maybe somebody else who is normally not up there gives it a try. And you could see, it looked, that was the funny thing about that finish. It looked like it was really easy in the peloton. And then you see Jan Uiterbroeks, who attacks and looks like he's going full gas. And yet the peloton accelerates only 400 meters and they catch him on the line. And Uiterbroeks was gone already for like more than 2.5 kilometers. So, it only them can tell, how it really feels. And it's not always what it looks like.
All right, now let's move on to today's stage, which was a sprint finish. And actually a really good one. I think one of the highlights there, let's weigh the balance of what happened. Caden Groves, a chain drop maybe, I heard, definitely affected him. Still fast and finished third, but that might have cost him. But what really did it for UAE was this Rui Oliveira lead out. It just, they took another path and it sort of surprised everybody. It totally surprised everybody. And set up Milano for a win for UAE to pick up a sprint stage. Like, probably not their plan on this Vuelta.
I personally think, JB, that independently of the mechanical mishap of Caden Groves, once Rui Oliveira launched with Milano glued to the wheel, it was over for Caden Groves. He may have been a little bit closer, but if you see the difference with which Milano wins the stage, and Caden Groves had still two riders in front of him, of his team. Now they just surprised everybody. They came with so much more speed, which is actually incredible because, Oliveira accelerates at a moment that actually another lead out guy is already going full gas. Yeah. So that's just crazy, to see that difference in speed.
Not only did they surprise everyone, it seems like they surprised themselves, judging from their reaction. Mm-hmm. Like, this was like some small team picked up a Vuelta stage win that didn't expect it. They were beyond thrilled to have a sprint win.
I think the difference is, like, think about how Caden Groves finished second today, won the first two sprint stages with ease, I'd say, because his team was so strong. His lead out was so strong. Just sit on the lead out, trust in the lead out. You'll be fine. Today, they just weren't going fast enough. You could say maybe they're fatiguing, but also his lead out man, I believe the last guy today was the guy who crashed in stage 7 pretty hard. So you'd imagine
Robert Hayes, no?
Yep, has dented his ability to kind of lead out at the same speed. And it maybe just opened the door a little bit because holy smokes, UAE was coming around fast. That was unbelievable.
It was, it must be the fatigue because for Alpecin, it looked perfect. They had at some point 5 guys there. I say, okay, who's going to beat Caden Groves? There's no way because it was like 1,400 meters to go and they still had like 5 guys.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about these sprints, all of a sudden something doesn't work out perfectly. And they were surprised. They were surprised, UAE. I think especially Oliveira was surprised that he passed them so fast. Because, Oliveira still finishes 4th himself, I think, right?
I know. Yeah, and he sat up. That's how fast he was going.
So that difference in speed was incredible. And you know what? Good for Milano, because he's been trying hard. Stage 1, the first sprint stage, he was really close. Then he was, I think 2 times behind the crash or something. And it's not easy for him to be a sprinter on UAE because he only has 1 or 2 riders next to him. All the other guys are around the GC guys. So nice win for UAE and for Milano.
We went back through his results on outcomes yesterday. Pretty good better sprinter than you would think for a guy that just became a sprinter and was a career lead out rider. I mean, he won a stage at the Saudi Tour last year, which you think like, or this year, like, oh, how important is that? But
was it the Saudi Tour or UAE Tour?
It was Saudi Tour, and it had every top rider. It had Mark Cavendish. It had like name a top sprinter. They were UAE Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get my Middle Eastern tours mixed up. Pretty much every top sprinter, and he wins a stage there. So you know that he's incredibly good, and it's actually wild to think in retrospect they were having him lead out Pascal Ackermann through the entire Vuelta last year. I mean, because we saw today he doesn't need much support to win. That's a very valuable rider.
And he won last year's Vuelta. He won the last stage in Madrid, leading out Ackermann.
And
Ackermann not being able to pass him. Yep. So he definitely has, a top speed in the legs. He also won a stage, a bunch sprint. No, just before the Vuelta in the Tour of Burgos, he already won a sprint. The best riders were not there, but he won a sprint there too, I think. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think he won. Oh no, maybe that's Gaviria in the Tour of Romandy. I'm not sure about that, but he won a stage in Burgos, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I was
just before the Vuelta. Yeah,
it was top of mind for me coming into this. Did you guys see who got second in the intermediate sprint?
Yeah,
Primož Roglič. Yeah, taking some time bonuses. Kind of interesting in there.
Yeah, I think he picked up 4 seconds or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's still 2 seconds, because Evenepoel in the early stages, he took 6 seconds, I think, by surprise. Now Primož gets 4, so it kind of evens it out. But you can clearly see that these guys are there and they know that every second's going to count.
Well, yeah, that was my next question. Is remember the first week, the rhetoric from Jumbo was, this won't be won by seconds, blah, 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 blah. And you think Primož is saying, are we sure about that? I just won a Grand Tour by 14 seconds. Maybe we should grab as much time as we possibly can here.
Well, I think it's always depends on the effort it costs, right?
Yeah.
The day it was planned because Tratnik did the lead out for Roglič. Thinking that he could get 6 or 4 seconds where Evenepoel wouldn't take any seconds. And then you see at the same time a teammate of Remco Evenepoel, I think it was it Casper Pedersen, he sprinting for those bonus seconds to avoid that any of those GC guys takes those seconds.
Yep.
All right, now pull out your crystal ball. We're heading into the big mountains. What is Jumbo's strategy now? Yeah, I think we've reduced it from 3 to 2 GC leaders, or is Jonas still in the picture? Does Sepp Kuss move back into his super domestique role for Roglič? What do you guys think is going to happen?
No, Sepp Kuss definitely not. Sepp Kuss has a protected status now. If you think logically, Sepp Kuss usually is the guy who puts the hurt on all of these guys, and his leader is with him and maybe two other big rivals. So that's when Sepp Kuss' job is done. Now he's in the position that he just has to try to follow. In my opinion, I mean, I don't know what Jumbo-Visma is going to do. Probably something completely different than I'm going to say now. But it's not up to them to attack. They're in the lead, and every day is a day gained, right? There's no more time trial. So as long as Sepp Kuss can stay on the same level with Evenepoel and Mas and Ayuso and Almeida, to name a few, which you would say, hey, you know what? That's not a bad situation. It's okay. You could say Remco Evenepoel, he's a Grand Tour winner, right? He has that pedigree of super big engine. But Enric Mas, Juan Ayuso, Almeida, Sepp Kuss doesn't have to, there's no panic that he's going to get dropped big time from those guys. So it's up to the other guys to attack, I would say, and say, hey, you know what? It's your race to win. So let's see what you got, and we'll just try to follow you.
I agree. I think that's exactly what they should do. And I would even go as far to say Sepp Kuss, if you go back through his career, he has better career performances on HC climbs than Remco Evenepoel, who really struggles. And this might just be we will find out. That's the fun thing. We're going to find out in a few days what is going on here. But Tour Switzerland, he's really struggled at that race throughout his career. It could just be timing that he's never fit for that. But when he gets to these high mountain climbs and they come one after the other, you have multiple HC climbs in a stage, he does not perform particularly well. He can limit losses really well, but he needs to be taking time. He can't be limiting losses to Sepp Kuss. He needs to take time. And it starts to get really tricky if you think about that. Like if you're QuickStep, do you try to go as slow as possible through these mountain stages and hope that no one makes the race that hard?
It's really, it's a waiting game. I think personally, tomorrow is a stage that will instill a lot of respect to a lot of riders. It's a super hard stage. It's a super hard stage, big climbs. I personally think a guy like Evenepoel and Soudal QuickStep, they'll probably say, okay, you know what, let's see how we get through this one, right? And I think tomorrow's goal of Evenepoel should probably be not lose time. That would be, I think, I agree. Success. And Jumbo-Visma is the same. Let's not lose time. So maybe it's UAE or maybe it's Movistar who comes up with an aggressive plan, and that's probably what they should do. Enric Mas could take advantage of that supervision, between Jumbo and Soudal and maybe Ayuso or Almeida or more Marc Soler. Let's not forget a bit about him. He's in second after all.
This is a bit of a ridiculous question, but to kind of piggyback on JB's question, does Jonas Vingegaard take the Sepp Kuss role? Like, is he their last man now? But as I say that, he's only just over a minute behind Remco Evenepoel. So he's not like he's out of the race.
No, he's not out of the race, but I have to say, this is an indication of where it is with Jonas's condition. He's good. Definitely not at the same level, far from the Tour. And it is, from what I've seen after the time trial, but also in some other uphill finishes, it is likely that there's going to be somebody who's better than Jonas, who's not on Jumbo-Visma. Whether that's Ayuso or Mas or Evenepoel. So I personally think, but that's also something that the riders feel a lot better than anybody else. If Jonas is put in that role, I think he's going to put himself in that role. He's going to make that decision himself. Yeah. And it's an easy decision for him. After all, listen, he's the double Tour de France winner. He owes everything to his teammates. Hey, this is an ideal opportunity for him to show to his teammates and to the world that he's a great teammate. And, he will only get more popular if he sacrifices himself for another teammate, being the current Tour de France champion.
Another question mark that you guys have brought up already. Sepp Kuss is doing something that defies what any of us think is human by doing 3 Grand Tours in the same year, back to back. The question mark is does he run out of gas? Like, does it hit? Like, that's such an amazing effort. The more we go on, the less likely it seems, don't you think?
Well, I would say trying to win 3 Grand Tours is impossible. I even think winning the Giro and Tour maybe will never be done again. But he was not racing to win at the Giro. He was not racing to win at the Tour. I am almost going to zag on this. Was this good training? Because he's had a light race schedule outside of these. Has this set him up well? Like, was the Tour and the Giro essentially just really good training camps for the Vuelta España? And that he won't, maybe he falls apart and I look like an idiot, but I'm not sure it's that bad.
No, that's a bit of extreme thought, Spencer, being good training camps, but I get your point. I do think it's less and less likely that he's going to run out of gas. Once you're in the lead, man, it's a different game, and he sees this opportunity. And the way I have heard him speak after certain stages, he's getting really confident, not overconfident. And you know what? I mean, at the end of the game, if he doesn't win the Vuelta, so what?
Yeah.
Nobody expect him to win. He didn't come here to win. And being able to take it day by day is a huge advantage for Sepp Kuss. And just ticking off, okay, yeah, another day. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, I can see the towers on the Castellana in Madrid. Here we come. It would be an amazing story. It would be incredible.
Go ahead. Flip it on its head. So no pressure on Sepp Kuss. Sepp Kuss was not in the media kind of demanding, or at least his agent wasn't demanding that he should be paid more money and he's one of the best riders in the world and he should make Tadej Pogačar money. I mean, the lead up to this race has not been ideal for Evenepoel. And he's going to start feeling the pressure if he cannot get time back on Sepp Kuss.
One thing, I kind of agree. One thing is for Remco not winning the Vuelta and losing to either Roglic or Jonas. Everybody would say, okay, you know what? It's kind of expected,
Yeah.
Not winning the Vuelta, but the winner Sepp Kuss, that's a different game. That's different. And of course, they made mistakes. They gave way too much time on stage 6. They were not paying attention. They were asleep at the steering wheel. But yeah, listen, it's still far to go. And I'm pretty sure that we're still going to see big attacks and maybe some surprises that we don't expect.
All right. Now I'm really looking forward to outcomes. Your predictions for tomorrow. Have you guys recorded that already? You're doing that after this?
No.
Okay.
After a little bit later, I still have another one in between now.
I know.
La Movida.
I literally was just thinking, I got to let Johan go. He's got so much work to do still.
It's probably the hardest race of it's the hardest stage of the Vuelta. And then Saturday is also very hard. So that could explain the slow pace, JB, on stage 11.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, Lance brought this up, or we mentioned it on the last show, but still no press love in America for Sepp Kuss. It's just, the story is just buried. It's not happening.
It's the Vuelta, JB. The Tour asphyxiates everything in cycling. Yeah. The Giro gets more attention because it's the first Grand Tour of the season.
Yeah.
The Vuelta is kind of an appendix, right, of the Grand Tour or stage race season, and it's a hard race. Let me tell you, it's a super hard race, and I personally think Sepp Kuss is not in the slightest way worried that it doesn't get any exposure. If he manages to win this race, trust me, he's going to get the exposure he deserves.
Yeah, it will come with the win. Then everyone's going to pay attention and go, wait, whoa, what happened? Right? In America. Yeah, they'll wake up. Okay, before we wrap and let you guys get on to do more shows, let's do our Ventum trivia. We're giving away a brand new Ventum GS1 gravel bike. At the end of this Vuelta, all you have to do is participate by answering these trivia questions, email them in, and you could win. Doesn't cost you a thing. The question from our rest day recap, just to give the answer out, was how many combined U.S. National Championship road race titles did George and Lance win during their careers as professionals? George won 3 in 98, 06, and 09, and Lance won in 93. All right. Today's question is, in 2017, George raced the Cape Epic mountain bike stage race in South Africa. Who was his teammate? All right. Who was George's teammate in the 2017 Cape Epic? Look it up, find your answer, send it in to trivia@ventumracing.com, and you could win the new minted GS1, which will come complete with SRAM Apex AXS. Good luck to everybody. Johan, Spencer, again, you got work to do. Thank you for doing this. Your coverage is incredible, and I appreciate you having you here to do this for everybody. And thanks for the listeners for tuning in. We appreciate you as well.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. And I guess tomorrow we're going to be probably back with another episode of our new podcast, The Move Plus.
and you don't have to go anywhere for it. It'll be right here in this feed. And yeah, thanks for having me, JB.